idea. There is Israelis from the Jewish agency working in those campuses and helping your students. So Omri will share with us everything, and he sits in Manhattan, so obviously he knows about Colombia and everything else we're dealing with. And after that, Omri will share a bit about his experience from this current war, which went for 2 months to Israel to join his unit and his team. And as you all will assume that you know that we're coming very close to the Israel Memorial Day for our fallen soldiers and the people who died in terror attacks. I asked Omri as a combat soldier to share about where it finds him this year more than ever. So Omri, again, thank you for being here with us. I will give a short update about the last very hard week that we had in Israel, and then I will pass you the torch to talk. So we're here in May 9th, 2024, that 216 days of this Iron Swords War that it looks like it will never end. We still have 132 hostages. I'm not sure that you've noticed, but until a week and a half ago, we had 134. The past week, we realized that Eliakim Liebman, that we thought that were missing and maybe be abducted to Gaza. After 210 days, it was found in one of the graves in Israel. Eliakim, like almost 10 others, people from the Nova Festival, entered an ambulance, thought they could hide inside, and an RPG missile that was shot in an ambulance just burned it to the ground. And it ended up that almost 4 people were buried together, and what they thought that is one, but because of the destruction of the bodies, it took so long to find Eliakim, and again, only after 210 days, it was found like a week ago and was buried. And another one that we thought that is alive, we realized that are dead in Gaza, that I will talk in a moment, but for now we have 132 hostages in Gaza. The numbers of lives that we've lost since October 7th is rising this week in 10 more people. Ends up to 1,511 civilians and soldiers that died from the beginning of the war. Just to understand how this week was for Israel and for all of us. In the beginning of the week, we lost 4 soldiers, troops on the Rafiah border. They were guarding all those tanks and armed vehicles before what was back then a possible operation in Gaza. They died from a very simple bomb that was shot from Rafah, very close to where the humanitarian area is. So we lost 4 soldiers in the beginning of the week. 2 days after, we lost 2 reservists in the Lebanese border in Metula. The soldiers who were lost that fell in Gaza are Ido Testa, Reuven Mark Asulin, Tal Shabit, and Michael Rozel. The 2 reservists in the north are Dan Kamchaji and Nachman Natan Hertz. They died from a very simple drone entered from Lebanon. Metula and Lebanon are literally 100 meters from one another. Very simple drone just landed on their tent. Just to understand, first of all, this is where my own company was until 2 weeks ago, exactly in that location. And just to understand how big is the threat of the Israelis in the northern border. A drone is something that big with a grenade. Try to identify it and find it. It's much easier to find a cruise missile or an aircraft than a drone. And when the distances are so short and so accurate, again, you can buy this drone on eBay or wherever, but you can see how deadly it can be. And again, 2 reservists died in the Lebanese border in the beginning of the week. Later on, we realized that 3 people that was thought to be missing or hostages, possibly alive, are no longer with us. We talked about Eliakim Liebman, but also Dror Or from Kibbutz Be'eri and Lior Rodai from Kibbutz Nir Yitzchak. Again, we thought they are alive and we realized they were died in captivity in Gaza. 4 days ago, a SWAT fighter was hurt in Tulkarem in the West Bank in one of the special operations were conducted there. Yitav Lev Halevi, he died from his wounds 2 days ago. Itav served in my unit, Maglan, and it ends up to more than 20 soldiers that my unit lost since the beginning of the war. Regular troops and reservists. And we'll just say something that I'm sure that Omri, as part of a special unit himself, can identify. It feels like all of them are my brothers. I don't know him personally, but I feel that I know him. I know his training. I know the connection that he has to his team. I know the dedication he has to his country and to his friends. And I know his DNA. And each and every one of them is another shot in the heart. And as much as I feel proud that my own unit and my own DNA is in so many front lines and do everything they can for Israel, it's just devastating again and again. And it's becoming closer every day. So Itav died from his wounds 2 days ago. And only yesterday we lost another warrior in the northern border in Malkia, Chaim Sabach, from another very simple mortgage missile, not even a missile, the same weapon that been used in the Second World War. A very simple mortars that were just fired and fell wherever. And Chaim Sabach was hit. Ends up to 10 soldiers and 10 individuals that Israel have lost in the past week. And we can learn from this 3 things. First of all, the war is still here. We tend to believe that it's not, and it's becoming easier as the time goes by, and it's not. It's here and it's all over. As you can see, the IDF fights in every front, Lebanon, West Bank, and in Gaza, and there is casualties. And I think that we know it as Israelis, but sometimes the biggest threat is not the technology. Sometimes they can threat us the most with the most simple things. If you go back prior to October 7th, the biggest challenge in the Gaza Strip was those kites that create fires. And it's very hard to stop a kite. You cannot set Iron Dome to stop a kite. The same with those simple missiles, and the same with those drones. Again, much easier to identify a cruise missile coming from Iran than a drone coming from Lebanon. And it can just give you the slightest concept of how threatened Israel is in that moment. And again, sometimes when technology is not enough, so we start to think what will be enough. But this is the situation with the Israelis, and the situation now. Coming to the Israel Memorial Day, another very hard week for all of us. Today I will talk about 2 main arenas. I don't think we need to go over everything, and it's not like there was a very big progress in the last 2 weeks, or in the last week. You all saw the trick that Hamas tried to conduct with agreeing to this ceasefire that everybody thought that this is the same ceasefire that everybody been talked about, and very fast we realized that it's not, that they changed the entire deal for something they made up. The simplest example is we talked about starting this deal with 33 live hostages. They talked about 18 hostages in 6 weeks, and live or dead. Just this simple change. So it's not that you agree for a deal, but Israel cannot accept such conditions. But as you all know, the effect on the world media happened already. The IDF in return start a small operation in Rafah, controlling the Rafah crossing in the Palestinian side, and start to evacuate the people from Rafah. I will just remind all of you, we talked about it last week, there is a strategic advantage of controlling this Rafah crossing for the IDF and for Israel. If we even put the hostages aside, but again, if Israel wanna think about the day after, wanna prevent Hamas from regaining abilities and weapons, we must control this Philadelphia path and this Rafah crossing. And I'm assuming that this was what the IDF trying to accomplish with that, and even, have all that more leverage on Sinwar to, again, maybe come to a possible deal with the conversation still happening in Cairo. it is a very hard situation to be in for Israelis. My feeling personally that with killing these 4 soldiers on the border, again, Hamas doing everything he can to make us go into Rafah. He sees that the world is with him, and he's just pushing and pushing, he's poking the bear, and we're on the verge of entering, but we haven't, and then you kill 4 soldiers, and then what can you expect from Israel to do? Just poking the bear. And I will not go political about Biden. I think Biden did a lot of amazing things for Israel, but I'm sure that Hamas see the news and see that the world will do everything in their power to prevent us from going there, and it's giving him strength. In the end of the day, his prisoners living their life in Israeli prison, and ours are not. So they see that we wanted probably a bit more than them, and in the Israeli street, and I'm sure that all of you see the protest in Ayalon and in Tel Aviv. Again, all of them, I'm sure that everyone want what's best for Israel, want to bring the hostages back home. Very hard to know what's right in the situation we're in. If you go to Lebanon, in one hand, there is conversation all the time, and Hezbollah just rejected France's agreement for a ceasefire, but there is conversation all the time. On the other hand, it's escalating every day, and as you see, we lost 3 people only in the past week, more wounded. The IDF is attacking the south of Lebanon, is escalating every day. I don't think it will end up in a war at the end of it, but the reality is that we're 7 months after the beginning of the war, and still 70,000 Israelis are being displaced, my family included. And I remember that the Israelis looking at the 1st of September. This is the end date for a lot of the people where they're going to start the next school year. Because if a lot of them will start the next school year in the center of Israel, I'm not sure they're going to come back. And this is the biggest fear for a lot of us from the north and from this area. Just 2 short updates, and then I will give the torch to Omri. As I'm sure, again, as I said, we're coming very close to the Israel National Days, the Memorial Day, and Independence Day next week. We're having a very big ceremony for the Israel service, Memorial Day on May 13th, Monday, 7 p.m. on the Midway Jewish Center. And again, it just makes things that much harder that time. And one last thing that I'm not sure that you're aware of, but there is the Eurovision contest, which is a singing contest, happening in Europe. Israel obviously is participating, and almost as every year is becoming very political, and Israel is getting very bad feedbacks from the Europeans. And we will share in any way we can this context and our ability here to vote for Israel, that the voting start open today. And just as all of you and your friends and family go online and just vote for Israel, it's a big statement. When we're talking about this war, if Israel become one of the last places, it's a statement from the European people, and it become one of the highest places. It's a different statement, but this is what I want to have. The Israeli song talks about October 7th. It talks about everything we experienced. Again, just 2 short updates. Now I want to give the torch to Omri. Again, thank you for being with us here today. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dagan. First of all, good morning, everybody. Dagan, thank you for inviting me. I'm always glad for an opportunity to speak about the Israel Fellows on campus. I'd love to share with you, to tell you about this special program. I'm a coordinator. I work in Jaffe in this program, and I will try to give some optimism in a pretty I don't know, maybe unprecedented time. So I'll try to be as interesting, as interactive as possible. I know this is not the best way to communicate, and I know you can't really tell because my accent is really subtle, but I'm originally from Israel. So if something I'm saying isn't really clear, just write on the chat or in the Q&A. I'll try to speak about it to answer as we go. We don't have much time, but I really want to tell you about that program. We have this is my second year here in New York City, and I coordinate the program for Jaffe that sends Israeli shlichim to American campuses in North America, campuses, university, colleges. Jaffe is working not only to create Jewish peoplehood. I think we understood that the connection between American Jewry and Israel is essential to the very existence of Israel, as we saw in the last 6 months in a very clear way. So we're sending young, passionate, talented Israeli emissaries to universities and campuses in the US and in Canada in order to do Israel advocacy. And they work mostly in Hillel in universities. But it's not that Israeli advocacy that that I thought about before I knew this program. It's not the Hasbara, the cherry tomato, USB, Masada, Rawa, Israel advocacy. It's about creating relationships. We have 70 shlichim in over 100 campuses, a little less, maybe 68 shlichim in over 100 campuses. They are former Israeli lawyers. They worked in tech, finance, teachers, social workers, and they decided to do a shift in their lives because this connection was really important to them. And they're going to an adventure of 2 or 3 years abroad, and they're working at Hillel. How do they create relationships? They meet hundreds of students each year. Each of our Israeli emissary, each of our fellow meets between 200 and 800 individual students each year in coffee chats, in Shabbat dinners, under the sukkah, in students' retreat, in workshop, and they're creating a safe space to be proudly not only Israeli, to be proudly Jewish and unapologetically pro-Israel, which is a very hard thing to do right now, as I'm sure we're all aware of. So just a few small examples. I have dozens, but just small examples. In Virginia Tech, our Shalich organized moment of silence for the October 7th atrocities during the biggest football game of the year. They screened pictures of the hostages in the big screens in the football game. In Florida, the Israel fellow is now on his third trip post 10/7 with students in Israel during this time. In Stony Brook, Krav Maga course for Jewish students, and an Israeli Passover dinner with a lot of students. Columbia organizing Yom HaZikaron, Harvard, our lovely Israel fellow organized a vigil, and we have so many other examples. They're doing an amazing job through very difficult times. I want to speak a little bit about the encampments right now because we're tracking it. We have about 100 encampments right now. Most of them are in Northeast campuses, the mass majority. And in about 30 of them, we have Israel fellow on campus. Last week, there was, just to give an example, last week we had 30 arrests in an encampment in UNC in North Carolina. 17 of those arrests weren't even students, and about half of the students were not from UNC campus. So I think that kind of gives us the background of who is in those encampments. My biggest surprise during all of this time since October 7th is that we saw a shift in the discourse, in the mainstream discourse about Israel. I think not just in students, but also in the academic discourse, we saw, I think the mainstream view of Israel was Israel should go back to the 67 borders. And now we're seeing as a mainstream opinion that it shifted from Israel is an occupier, she should withdraw to the 67 line. Israel was born in sin, and thus she should not exist. This is a thing I've been hearing, the students been hearing, in just as a mainstream opinion, an academic mainstream opinion, and that's, in my opinion, not only surprising, but maybe the biggest. I don't know if the biggest, one of the biggest accomplishments of October 7th from Hamas sides. So we have like a couple of more minutes just to tell you about my experience here. I'm a Navy diver in the Israeli Navy. I'm a major in reserve duty, and after 10/7, it was kind of interesting time for me because I was torn between staying here with my fellows or going back to my team. I'm a team leader. They waited for me back there. I felt like there's too much at stake. I went back. I served for 2 months with my team, and just honestly, I was so scared. I mean, there's nothing. I don't want it to sound heroic. It was just, kind of my obligation to do, and I just want to say that there's I try to deliver a message wherever I can. Look, war isn't romantic at all. There's a perspective of it. Maybe when you're on the outside, it's not romantic. It's not fun. No one likes war, and I really want to make the message, to deliver the message that IDF soldiers in reserve duty and not in reserve duty like myself, we're doing everything we can, including risking our own lives, our troops' life, to avoid harming innocent innocent people in during this war. I wanna say it loud and clear, just so people who aren't there knows it. Okay. My team was released after 2 months. I came back here to another front line, to the campuses, and I'm actually flying back to Israel right now for the Memorial Day and for Yom HaZikaron. Usually it's a day of mourning in Israel. It's a day of quiet, it's a day of silence, of inner reflection, maybe. And now just like Dagan said, we're at war. So it's weird. I don't know if we'll be able to sit quiet and really mourn while people are still fighting and dying. For me, the most important thing is, I lost a couple of my friends. I miss them. But the most important thing is be there for the families. There's a lot of, since October 7th, 1,594 civilians and Israeli soldiers died. That's a lot of broken families. And for me, the meaning of that day is be there for them, for the people who are really, I don't know, broken. This is kind of what I feel my obligation is. So I know we don't have much time. I hope it was meaningful to you. And yeah, Dagan, thank you again for inviting me.
Omri, thank you. Yeah, it's always on a nutshell. That's our theme. Yeah, I can only sympathize with what you said. I agree. I think Memorial Day is about the families, and we all lost a lot. And again, I can only thank, first of all, for your service. Again, the Navy is one of our very special units, but also for going back. And I'm sure that it was a very hard dilemma. What is the harder front? I know I faced it. and I stayed, but I know that going back and then going back here and understanding that it's another front, and I will be honest, I think in both of them, you're on the front line much more than all of us. So thank you for that, and thank you for this, and for sharing about your experience in a bit. And again, you cannot say much because the things you did, but again, thank you. There's one, I think, two things that come to mind from what you said. First of all, you mentioned 70% of people who protesting and get arrested are not students, which is amazing. Like, I would think, looking at the news, that it's all students of Columbia protesting, and you said that, again, the majority of the people protesting and get arrested are not even students in the university. Oh, wait.
So 17 out of 17 people out of 30 arrests at UNC weren't students. I have a feeling, because I haven't done the statistics in all of the arrests in other campuses, but I have a feeling the majority of, if not the majority, a big part of people who protest are not students on campuses. That's for sure. Yeah. I can't tell you the exact statistics, but for sure, a lot of people who are protesting inside campuses, inside encampments, aren't students at all. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And one last thing, maybe you can share what your fellows are sharing. Like, how is it to be Israeli in those campuses in that time? Like, I'm sure it's one thing to be Jewish, but being an Israeli in that time, how is it like for them?
I think that first of all, they are very frustrated from the situation. Of course, it's hard. They're experiencing a lot of hate, but they're trying to be there for the students. That's their job. And I think we we lost the word Zionist. It's like a bad word on campuses right now. That means saying you're Zionist means you're racist, fascist, whatever. The worst thing there is. We lost that word to unfortunately, and I think our Israel fellows are building a space where it is okay to be whoever you want. There's a question that keeps coming back. Can I criticize Israel policy and still be a Zionist? I mean, of course you can, but the discourse is now so polarized that people are really afraid of even touching or be connected with anything that's Israel related.
Yeah, and I think my last question is, if those people are hearing us now, if they want to be in touch with this, who know, first of all, to know if they have an Israeli fellow in their college or in their kids' college, and they want to be in touch with him, how can they do it?
So our Israel fellows are working at Hillel, so they can reach to the local Hillel, and they'll find our Israel fellow there. If there's something else you'd like to know, or get in touch with the Israel Fellow Program in general, Dagan, you can share my info. Maybe later, if anybody wants, I'd love to answer any questions.
Okay, and it's important to say that we have an Israeli fellow here on Long Island, on Stony Brook. We have Noah, one of our own.
Lovely, Noah, yeah.
Yeah, so again, if you have kids going to Stony Brook, just so you know. And Omri is here. He lives in the city. He can come here to meet your college kids before going back to college in August. Your seniors will go to college next year. And Omri, the Israeli fellow, is part of the Jewish Agency, are here for anything you want and need. So again, you can be in touch with me and I will connect you to Omri, or send in the email afterwards with the recording of this video, anything else. Omri, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Wish you a peaceful weekend. Let's hope. Bye-bye.